and this is the working hour. Um, Today, we're actually going to talk about the $1 million question. And I just wrote a blog post about this, and it just got posted earlier today. And it's something that just came to me yesterday or the day before. I think it was the day before, as we were being inundated with rain here in Southern California. I just was like, okay, my dog is like fidgeting here. He's all over the place. He's pestering me about different things and stuff. And I was just wondering, why is it easier for my dog to ask for what he needs and what he wants than it is sometimes for me or for other people to do likewise? And I guess the best way to put it is if you go onto my website and you take a look, you'll actually see it in the blog post. You'll see actually a picture of my dog Cooper. He is a 9-year-old Labradoodle. And the truth of the matter is, he is in a lot of ways better at communicating what he wants and what he needs than most humans. Uh, Now, I start to think about this and kind of going through this, and you know, I guess the best way to put it is this. He came up to me, and my wife had the door to the office closed. And because he had because my wife had the door closed, the dog came up to me and he was just fidgeting, and he would, he doesn't growl. He kind of cries a little bit. And I go through the usual. Do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you need to do business? Do you need water? What do you want? I'm like, okay, let's go. And I would get up off my desk, and he would walk right to the door, and he would just look at me and look at the door, look at me, look at the door. He wanted in, but he couldn't get in. Nor did I let him in because my wife was in the middle of a business call, and that couldn't happen. Now, full disclosure, my dog is professionally trained. He was professionally trained, but he actually had this beforehand. And the reason I bring this up is we all have this innate ability that's kind of born in us to actually ask for what we need and what we want. But we've learned that we've had to make ourselves smaller. And what I learned as a lesson from my 9-year-old Labradoodle is, quite frankly, you know, this is what I want, give it to me. Now, again, we can't go walking in this world and go and say, um, this is what I want, give it to me, unless you are, I won't even go down that road. But the long and the short of it is this: we've learned to kind of make ourselves smaller. And what I'm telling you is, when it comes to your job search, when it comes to your career, you can't play small. It's very easy to go into to get into that. But again, you know, if you go and you play small in your career, you know, you're going to get small things. Now, a lot of times what ends up happening is we just don't ask for the basic things that we need and we deserve in our careers, like respect, like being valued for the work that we do. And for a lot of people, they've seen their careers kind of plateau and just there. And a lot of times what ends up happening, especially if you are over 40, and congratulations, you millennials, a bunch of you have joined us um, as the over 40 crowd. Congratulations, you are considered a protected class, according to the Department of Labor. But what I'm trying to get at is this: a lot of times when you are over the age of 40, you don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to risk, because at the age of 40, you have a lot of things going on. You have a mortgage, you maybe have kids, you maybe are married or in a committed relationship. And even if you're not, again, you're at a point in your life where it's much more difficult to start over. And a lot of times what ends up happening is we just keep silent. We take what's given to us. Okay. And a lot of times what ends up happening is we make things worse. And again, these things kind of show up in different ways. It could be like not asking for a raise when you realize that you are undercompensated for the job that you do. It could be not raising your hand for a project and saying, hey, you know, I can do this. I have bandwidth. I can take this on. And sometimes it can be not saying something when somebody does something wrong. It's easier to just keep quiet and keep in the background than to stand up and say, and be a leader, by the way, and say, hey, this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. And I've learned very early in my life that your actions, even if you're doing the right things, they do have consequences for the good and the bad. But the truth is, you never know. It's all the what might happen. Now, here's the other thing I'm going to tell you is this. A lot of times, if we don't speak up, we just kind of go along with the flow. You're just going to get what comes along with the flow. And you're going to end up frustrated. Now, here's one thing I will tell you this. Often companies or managers, they are kind of a little less attuned to what your needs are uh, than, you know, than you think. We'd all like to think that we're special and that everyone is thinking about us and all this stuff. And the truth of the matter is, people are running their own lives, they're running their own careers, they're worried about different things, and they may not be attuned to what your needs are. And if you don't speak up, you don't get. Now, one of the things I will tell you in your career, why it's important for you to speak up and talk about these things, is because at some point you are going to get frustrated. At some point, you're going to say, I need to make a decision. I need to get out of here. And that's fine. But you need to do it from a place of, hey, did I exhaust all the different things? Did I do all the things that I needed to do to communicate before I just write the situation off? And especially if you're somebody who's a little bit older. Again, it's harder to start over when you're older. Even though you've got more experience, you've got more risk. Now, one of the things I will tell you is this, again, good companies, good managers, a lot of times they are less attuned. And what you need to do is you need to go and you need to say something. And you'd be pleasantly surprised if you say something that they might be able to do something. Now, truth be told, good managers, they want to know. And the reason why they want to know is this: it's not out of a high level altruism on their part or anything like that, but it's easier to deal with a situation. If you're unhappy, it's easier for them to deal with it before it becomes a big issue. And the big issue for them is this: if you are a good, productive employee and you are a consistent high contributor, if you leave, there's a lot of things that leave with you. For one, your experience leaves. Your experience in working within the organization leaves. The other thing is this: if you've been there for any length of time, you have probably taken on more responsibility just by nature of you doing what you do, that somebody else coming in would need to learn. And for them to retrain somebody and bring somebody up to speed costs money. Recruiting costs companies tons and tons of money. And it's not just the salary and the benefits, it's actually the opportunity cost, the productivity that they lose when they have to bring somebody else new and they have to train them up. And they've done studies that it takes about a year for a person to become fully competent and capable in the position that they're in before they are really making sizable contributions that impact the bottom line. And it has nothing to do with you as a person. And some people do it sooner, some people do it a little bit later. But on average, they figure about anywhere from 10 to 12 months. Now, again, if they can deal with the issue beforehand, you're happy, they're happy. It's a win-win situation. But what do you do if you just stay silent? Well, let's put it this way. One of two things is going to happen. Okay? If you stay in this cycle, one of two things is going to happen. Both outcomes are not ideal for both you and the company you work for. Okay, first is this. First, you're going to kind of take what comes, you're going to be silent, and you're going to end up at some point becoming resentful and angry with the situation, and your productivity will start to go down. And basically, your the end of your time at that company becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Just because you're just not feeling it anymore. You don't have that excitement that you had when you were just starting out, when you just walked in that first day. The second, which is might be not really good for you, is that you take a knee-jerk reaction and you leave for a worse situation that you're in now. So if you're working for a good company and you're working with people that seem to be good managers and understanding that they may be a little bit, dare I say, caught up in their own, it may be more valuable for you to actually just have that conversation. And then what ends up happening if you do take option number two and that knee-jerk reaction, you'll end up, it's kind of ending from the frying pan into the fire. And then you're going to have to deal with it. And if you haven't dealt with the issues that you've had before and you don't actually communicate, you'll end up having it being a self-fulfilling prophecy again. And a lot of times when we make changes, we hope that things are better and different. And a lot of times because we haven't dealt with the issues beforehand and the reasoning behind it, what ends up happening is we just make the issue over and over and over again. Now, I can write about 100 pages on this. I could do a whole dissertation on, why people leave companies and all this stuff. And you've probably read a ton of it already. But let's consider some key points and some actions that you can take to kind of make things a little bit better and kind of move things along. And here's this. Number one, I would tell you this. Prepare yourself for change within the company or elsewhere. And how you do that is this. You update your resume, you update your LinkedIn profile, and you start putting together a list of your achievements and your contributions, the things that you've done in your company and on the job. And it's not your day-to-day tasks. And a lot of times job descriptions, you see the day-to-day tasks. It's not a bad place to start, but those tasks have impact. So what is the impact that those tasks had? So write them down. You're going to need this information. You're either going to need this information as leverage within your company to say, hey, I want to raise, or I want to be considered for a promotion. And you're going to need to have these things up to date if you want to make a change either within the company. But you need to be able to plead your case and say, hey, this is why I deserve it. Okay? Next, you need to go and you need to do kind of what if scenarios. Okay? I like to call it kind of mapping out what my next steps are going to be. I worked overseas, and the place that I worked, a lot of times things were a little bit more difficult. We didn't have access to some of the things that we have here in the United States that are a little bit more readily available. There had to be some planning. So just by a matter of habit, what I do is this. I like to have like 3 steps mapped out. So if X happens, I'm going to do A, B, and C. And if Y happens, I'm going to do PDQ. But at least I have in my head, I've thought it through on what actions I'm going to take or I may want to take if either one of the scenarios work out. because now you have a bias for action. The other thing, number three, is this: have an open dialogue with your manager. That's their job. And if you're a manager, encourage your employees to have open dialogues with you about these things. Not only will you be a superstar manager in what you do, but you'll be more productive in your group and more productive in what you do, and you'll set yourself up, if you're a manager, for a promotion because your team is a top performing team. But you need to open a dialogue. If you are looking to increase your responsibility, if you're looking to increase your pay, your compensation, you need to open that dialogue. And this is basically a dialogue on your how you align your goals with the department and everything like that. And currently, the value that you're adding. So we're going back to the work that you did in step number one. Number four, if you're not making the market, definitely a have a conversation. Now, your manager and HR may not be able to do something now or not now. It may be a no, but at least then you know where you stand. And then you can make it an informed decision and go back to number two. If X happens, I'm going to do ABC. If Y happens, I'm going to do PDQ. But you need to have steps 1 through 3 nailed down. You need to prepare yourself for change. You need to have your information, your LinkedIn resume, your resume, your LinkedIn. You need to have your contributions. You need to have all those things already flushed out. You need to have your what if scenarios worked out, so you can take a step towards positive action. Now, understand this: they may not be able to do things with base salary. There's a whole thing I could, again, write 100 pages on compensation. But there may be different levers that they can pull. They could give you a spot bonus. They could give you a flat out raise. They may be able to give you more time off. They may be able to give you stock in the company or give you options. So there's different things that they can pull to make you happy. If you're a top performer, they're going to gladly want to do this for you. And sometimes you need to make your case and plead your case and saying, here's why I'm a top performer. And you need to be able to nail down what you do and your accomplishments. And you need to do it in a way that's articulate, concise, and clear. And how it aligns to the company goals and how it aligns to the department's goals, both long-term and short-term. Now, if you're interested, learning a little bit more about the subject, a little bit more about, making a career change and doing those things, again, feel free to go and book a free call with me. Again, I guess the best way to put it is this: you can just go and click the little code right up there and book a meeting with me directly. And let's talk about a little bit what you're working through, a little bit some of the problems that you have. And then this way we can work on a plan to kind of move forward in your career. It's better to work on it now than just let it sit. So this has been the working hour for Wednesday. It's February 7th already. Good gracious. I will see you next week, and have a great and productive